Chapter 71. Xiao Yan quietly nodded in his heart when he saw how sincere Luo Jin's attitude was. Not only was Luo Jin meticulous, but he was also very magnanimous. Xiao Yan felt reassured to work with him. Moreover, after interacting with him for such a short period of time, Xiao Yan could tell that Luo Jin was likely an outstanding disciple from some faction. Additionally, Luo Jin was an easygoing person. Hence, Xiao Yan had a good impression of Luo Jin. He extended his hand and courteously thanked Luo Jin. After which, the two of them once again flew towards the Lianyun mountain range. TSK, this little fellow is not simple. Xiao Yan's eyes flashed as he flew. He asked Gu Yu in his heart, Elder Gu, what is this? Elder Gu, what do you mean by that? Could it be that I was deceived by him? The person who had spoken was naturally Gu Yu. Xiao Yan's heart was slightly shaken after hearing Gu Yu's words. Hence, he asked Gu Yu with some lingering fear. Gu Yu softly chuckled upon hearing this. He said, don't worry. I do not know if there is a problem with this little fellow, but the thing he wants is not ordinary. Xiao Yan lifted his eyebrows slightly. He asked Gu Yu in his heart again. Elder Gu, are you talking about the heavenly imperial jade essence that he wants? Yes. Xiao Yan involuntarily frowned. He was just about to ask when Gu Yu quickly spoke. The heavenly imperial jade essence is a natural treasure. It contains extremely pure natural energy. If it is refined and absorbed by someone, that person's strength will definitely soar. This is especially true for a little fellow at the half-emperor level like you. If you use the heavenly imperial jade essence, your strength will definitely soar. Xiao Yan was slightly startled when he heard this. He originally thought that it was already very good that Luo Jin had told him about the heavenly imperial flower. He did not expect that Luo Jin had hidden such a great treasure. However, the effectiveness of the heavenly imperial jade essence depends on how much natural energy it absorbs. Normally, if it's a piece of heavenly jade essence that's more than 1,000 years old, the energy it contains is enough to raise your cultivation level by 2 levels. Therefore, I believe that you already have an answer in your heart. Xiao Yan nodded slightly. Since that is the case, I will do my best to help him obtain the heavenly imperial court jade essence. This way, it can be considered as me repaying him for helping me find the meteorite mysterious iron. Gu Yu was speechless when he heard this. There were clearly a few big items waiting for him, yet he wanted to give them to others after obtaining them. This was really too much. However, Gu Yu thought about it and nodded. He was full of praise for Xiao Yan in his heart. He had a steady temperament, knew how to be grateful, and would not be swayed by petty benefits. He could indeed be considered a moldable talent. Time passed, and the two of them had already entered the Lianyun mountain range. They continued walking towards the depths of the mountain range. The moment the two of them entered the Lianyun mountain range, there was a huge cave in the depths of the Lianyun mountain range. A tall and straight man with a head full of silver hair was seated on the ground. His originally narrowed eyes suddenly opened at this moment as he looked towards Xiao Yan and Luo Jin's direction. The man frowned slightly, snorted softly, and muttered to himself, that's right. He muttered to himself, a 2-star half-emperor and a 4-star half-emperor. With such strength, they actually dare to enter my territory. They must be tired of living. After his voice sounded, the man once again narrowed his eyes and continued to sit on the ground. He quietly waited for Xiao Yan and Luo Jin's arrival. A moment later, Xiao Yan and Luo Jin's figures finally appeared in the depths of the Lianyun mountain range. Xiao Yan and Luo Jin's figures stood side by side in front of the huge cave entrance. They both looked at the huge cave entrance in front of them. This cave also matched the character of the cloud-splitting wolf. Within 100 feet of the cave, it had already turned into a pitch-black world. Obviously, this was the work of the cloud-splitting wolf. Moreover, Xiao Yan and Luo Jin could clearly feel that there was a restriction within the cave that could avoid all probing. Hence, unless they personally entered the cave, they would not be able to know what was going on in the cave. Without much hesitation, the two of them moved and entered the pitch-black mountain cave. At the same time, in the depths of the cave, the cyan-clothed man's eyes suddenly opened. The hand seals in his hands changed. Roar! 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 A violent roar that shook the mountain was emitted from the man's mouth. The violent roar reverberated in the cave and traveled into Xiao Yan and Luo Jin's ears. Hearing this terrifying roar, Xiao Yan and Luo Jin's expressions changed simultaneously. However, the two of them were not ordinary people. After being shocked for a moment, Xiao Yan resisted the dizziness in his head and changed the hand seals in his hands. Then, Yellow Spring Divine Fury. Moo! 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 Another roar resounded within the cave, completely suppressing the sudden roar that came out of nowhere. In the depths of the cave, when the cyan-clothed man heard Xiao Yan's violent roar, he frowned slightly and a trace of anger appeared on his face. He was a magical beast and a wolf-type magical beast that was most sensitive to roars. Xiao Yan's violent roar naturally infuriated him. The cyan-clothed man's body shook and he stood up from the ground. His eyes were immediately enveloped by a bloodthirsty killing intent. Xiao Yan's roar made him feel a sense of provocation. Hence, after standing up, his body shook again and he disappeared from the spot. If it were not for the pair of inch-deep footprints on the ground, anyone would have thought that the figure just now was just an illusion. The echoes in the cave gradually dissipated and Xiao Yan also stopped. Luo Jin was still a little dizzy, but his body shook and he regained his consciousness. Luo Jin first let out a long breath. After which, he said to Xiao Yan, "Brother Yan Dong is really strong. The Dong Mountain roar of the cloud-splitting wolf is extremely powerful. Even an expert of the same level would have to be careful when dealing with it. If it was used at a close distance, using the echoes in the cave to cause the opponent to lose focus for a short period of time, there is a possibility that the cloud-splitting wolf would directly kill the opponent. However, it is unexpected that the Dong Mountain roar of the cloud-splitting wolf would be resolved by Brother Yan Xiao. You are really powerful." The corner of Xiao Yan's mouth twitched when he heard this. This was originally a very simple matter. If an expert of the same level had to be careful, then he could only blame himself for not having a sonic do technique. Roar. Which rascal dares to come to Qinggang Mountain and provoke me, Yun Lang? Chapter 72. Chapter 72, Fighting Yun Lang. A furious roar was emitted from deep within the cave. The rumbling sound caused Xiao Yan and Luo Jin to feel a piercing pain in their eardrums. The muscles on their faces twitched involuntarily. Their expressions changed slightly. Xiao Yan and Luo Jin exchanged glances before their bodies quickly pulled back and retreated out of the cave. "Ha! Since you have come, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Stay behind." Xiao Yan and Luo Jin had just retreated. They had yet to completely exit the cloud-splitting wolf's cave when Yun Lang's ear-piercing roar was once again emitted. Yun Lang's body suddenly shook from deep within the cave. The wild and violent Do Qi within his body spread in all directions, causing the entire mountain to involuntarily shake. Yun Lang's body suddenly disappeared. At the same time, the bodies of Xiao Yan and Luo Jin, who were retreating out of the cave, stilled. Xiao Yan's expression changed drastically. The Do Qi within his body instantly surged to the surface of his body. The heavenly flame spat out and swiftly agglomerated into a heavenly flame armor on the surface of his body, protecting him within it. The footwork of Yun Lang's feet changed as he unleashed the sky extinction step. His body flashed and a fist violently smashed toward Xiao Yan's back. Bang! An instant later, Xiao Yan's body flashed and appeared from a corner of the cave. His body involuntarily collided with the cave wall. With a bang, nearly 1/3 of the surface area of the enormous Qinggang Mountain was destroyed. The outside world of the other mountains also had a Do Qi barrier vaguely flickering, protecting the entire mountain within it. However, from the looks of it now, it was likely that even this tough Do Qi barrier would not be able to endure for long. The power of this punch was actually so terrifying. Just the power of this punch was enough to blast apart a mountain, and this was only the result of Xiao Yan being sent flying. If this punch were to land solidly on this mountain, it was likely that in an instant, this 1,000 feet tall Qinggang Mountain would instantly turn into a pile of dust. Luo Jin's heart was involuntarily startled when he saw Xiao Yan being sent flying. The expression on his face instantly became solemn. The true strength of this cloud-splitting wolf was actually this frightening. It had already exceeded his expectations. Luo Jin's face was filled with shock when he saw Xiao Yan being sent flying. Although he had not interacted with Xiao Yan for a long time, Luo Jin had a very good impression of Xiao Yan. Living outside, Luo Jin would naturally not give up on having another friend. Luo Jin's body moved and appeared in front of Xiao Yan in a flash. He helped Xiao Yan up and his spiritual strength followed Xiao Yan's palm and entered Xiao Yan's body to check on Xiao Yan's injuries. Who dares to spy on my primordial spirit? The spiritual strength had just entered Xiao Yan's body when a furious cry that contained a ruthless killing intent was emitted from Xiao Yan's body. Luo Jin's expression also suddenly became surprised. The instant the spiritual strength entered Xiao Yan's body, a wave of extremely hot flame energy suddenly charged toward Luo Jin's spirit. Luo Jin's expression was startled. However, he also knew that this fellow should be related to Xiao Yan. Hence, he did not recklessly charge in. Instead, he chose to withdraw decisively. Yes. Luo Jin controlled his spiritual strength and quickly withdrew. However, even so, Luo Jin's spirit was still eroded by the wild and ferocious flame energy. His entire body involuntarily trembled. His teeth were tightly clenched and the veins on his forehead were about to burst. Beads of sweat flowed out from the pores on his back, drenching a large portion of his clothes. Luo Jin's spiritual strength suddenly trembled. Only then did he regain his senses. His eyes still revealed an astonished expression as he looked at Xiao Yan. The flame energy was not very strong. This was why Luo Jin was not worried even though he was astonished when the flame attacked him. It was also because of this that when the flame attacked Luo Jin's spirit, it caused Luo Jin to instantly sober up. That flame actually possessed an extraordinary amount of damage to the spirit. While he was still staring at Xiao Yan in shock, Xiao Yan pushed him aside. A fist passed through Luo Jin's chest and bombarded Luo Jin's back. Bang! With an explosion, Xiao Yan's body flew backwards. Before he could stop, a figure appeared behind Xiao Yan. A fist was violently thrown toward Xiao Yan's back. Xiao Yan's body forcefully flashed and returned to Yunlang's side. The dou qi in his body surged out like floodwaters. With a thought, Xiao Yan's body suddenly transformed into a 99-foot-tall golden giant. The giant's entire body was covered with flickering purple gold dragon scales. A pair of large fists had also transformed into dragon claws. A glint flashed in his bright golden glass-like eyes as a fist was suddenly thrown toward Yunlang. A wild and ferocious wind was accompanied by an overbearing fist that tore through space as it violently smashed toward Yunlang. The space became distorted wherever it passed and the land shook. An ear-piercing sonic boom caused the eardrums of all the magical beasts within a 1,000-mile radius to burst and fresh blood flowed. In an instant, the entire Lian Yun mountain range had turned into a sea of blood. Yunlang did not feel much surprise in his heart at this powerful attack from Xiao Yan. His body explosively withdrew by 1,000 feet as he let out a furious roar at the sky. The tiny human body from a moment ago had transformed into a 1,000-foot-tall enormous beast in an instant. The cloud-splitting wolf was indeed worthy of being an 8-star half-martial emperor. With merely a glance, its enormous body had already covered over half of the sky. In an instant, the area within a circumference of 100 feet had turned dusky. At this moment, even Xiao Yan with his King Kong glass body was like an adult in front of a newborn baby in front of the cloud-splitting wolf. The cloud-splitting wolf let out a long roar as its body stood up like a human. Standing in the air, its large and sharp wolf claws ruthlessly swatted toward Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's heart did not dare to slight this claw even a little. His body suddenly shook and a monstrous aura suddenly erupted from within his body. A thought passed through his mind and the large golden mouth suddenly widened. Yellow Spring Divine Wrath. Moo. 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 The might of the Yellow Spring Divine Wrath shook the heavens. However, the cloud-splitting wolf did not show any signs of weakness as it opened its mouth and let out a heaven-piercing roar. Dong Mountain Roar. 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 The two attacks collided and the space suddenly shook violently. The space at the center was violently distorted for a while before it suddenly shattered and turned into a pitch-black void. As the space shattered, Xiao Yan's Yellow Spring Divine Wrath was the first to be destroyed by the Dong Mountain Roar and bombarded toward Xiao Yan. This was something that Xiao Yan had already expected. After all, this Yunlang was a genuine 8-star half-martial emperor. It would be difficult for him, a 2-star half-martial emperor, to engage in an all-out fight with him. The heavenly fire in his body suddenly gushed out and covered the entire giant golden fist. The intense heat caused the entire world to dry up in an instant. The forest below instantly turned into an endless sea of fire that spread in all directions. The ground also turned into cracked yellow soil and the hard rocks gradually melted into blazing hot magma. Ha! Earth Astral Flame, explode. Once again, Yunlang let out an explosive roar in his heart. A magma fire pillar surging with tyrannical and fierce flame energy suddenly gushed out from the earth vein. With a tyrannical aura that could tear apart space, it pierced a hole through the Dong Mountain Roar. When the fire pillar dissipated, the cloud-splitting wolf Yunlang was startled. After the fire pillar, Xiao Yan's enormous figure had already disappeared. There was only a gradually dissipating golden light where he stood. Octane Blast. Suddenly, Xiao Yan's explosive roar sounded from behind Yunlang. At this moment, Xiao Yan's entire body danced as he charged toward Yunlang. At this moment, every joint in Xiao Yan's body had turned into the most powerful weapon. His moves were grand and fierce. His tyrannical power was strong enough to flatten the Qinggang mountain with a casual strike. At this very moment, even Yunlang, who was standing in front of Xiao Yan, couldn't help but feel shocked by the strength of Xiao Yan's physical body. However, the cloud-splitting wolf was, after all, a magical beast. Magical beasts were naturally proud of their physical bodies. Now that it saw that a human's physical body was so tyrannical, how could the cloud-splitting wolf be willing to accept this? Not daring to underestimate him, the cloud-splitting wolf's body suddenly turned and evenly distributed all the strength in its body to every part of its body. The muscles all over its body tightened like steel, and its upright body instantly charged forward, fiercely colliding with Xiao Yan. How could the strength that was raised in an instant be able to forcefully push back Xiao Yan? The fierce collision caused the space between the man and beast to explode with a loud bang. The strength between the two was completely unleashed at this moment, causing the entire world to tremble in fear. Violent waves of air swept out, and in an instant, there were no clouds in the surrounding 1,000 miles. Although there was sunlight shining down, this world was still wrapped in a layer of ice aura that was like an ice house, causing people to unconsciously feel fear in their hearts. The cloud-splitting wolf was, after all, an 8-star half-martial emperor. Its tyrannical strength allowed it to firmly stand in an undefeatable position. In merely a short moment, Xiao Yan was already somewhat strenuous. Looking back at the cloud-splitting wolf, although its aura was also somewhat unstable, it was much better than Xiao Yan. Seeing this, the cloud-splitting wolf couldn't help but coldly snort in its heart. The dou qi within its body gathered on its sharp claws, and the strength of its claws abruptly increased. The fierce dou qi exploded at the point of contact with Xiao Yan, and with a single claw, it sent Xiao Yan flying. However, at the instant when Xiao Yan was sent flying, the cloud-splitting wolf frowned in its heart. It felt that something wasn't quite right, but it was unable to pinpoint what it was. In the blink of an eye, it saw that Xiao Yan had been sent flying. Wasn't this a great opportunity? Just as it was about to step forward and give Xiao Yan a quick death, an intense feeling of danger suddenly rose in its heart. The dou qi within its body swiftly circulated throughout its entire body. Following which, its body suddenly shook, and a fierce and overbearing force suddenly shot out from the cloud-splitting wolf's claw. It exploded in the air, causing numerous black lines to appear in the surrounding space. Seeing this, the cloud-splitting wolf was instantly enraged. The force that it had forced out from its body earlier was actually a hidden force. Moreover, from the explosive nature of this force, if it were to really explode in its body, even if it wasn't seriously injured, it would at least leave behind a layer of skin. With a flash, Xiao Yan, who had yet to stop his body, was just about to make a move when a fierce fist wind shot over from the side. This cloud-splitting wolf had actually transformed back into its human form. However, the force of this fist was even stronger. Moreover, its speed was so fast that it was impossible to dodge. All he could do was forcefully receive it. In an instant, Xiao Yan gathered all the dou qi in his body on the surface of his body. The Dragon Phoenix Ancient Armor and the King Kong Glass Body were both activated to the maximum as he waited for the next attack. An ant's body actually wants to shake the heavens. You are really seeking death. Hand over your life. When the cloud-splitting wolf arrived in front of Xiao Yan, it involuntarily let out a cold laugh in its heart when it saw that Xiao Yan still wanted to make a final gamble. Following which, a fist violently smashed into Xiao Yan's chest. Crack. With a crisp sound, the King Kong Glass Body suddenly burst apart. Xiao Yan also returned to his original size. However, the fist wind did not diminish in the slightest as it continued to violently smash into the Dragon Phoenix Ancient Armor on the surface of Xiao Yan's body. Bang! A muffled sound of flesh colliding rang out. Xiao Yan's body was like a cannonball as it flew back into the sky. However, Yun Lang's body had already appeared above Xiao Yan, waiting for the final blow. At the critical moment, Xiao Yan's footwork changed once again. His body that was flying back suddenly disappeared, causing the ruthless fist behind him to miss its target. Huh? Yun Lang frowned. He was also surprised that Xiao Yan had disappeared in an instant. Yun Lang narrowed his eyes. An icy light flashed across his eyes. With his body to the side, Yun Lang's sharp eyes scanned the surroundings. At the same time, Luo Jin had already recovered. However, he could not intervene in the battle between the two of them. Hence, he could only quietly wait by the side for an opportunity. In his heart, his opinion of Xiao Yan had also changed again and again in this short period of time. Xiao Yan looked ordinary, but his overall strength was far superior. Xiao Yan had many tricks up his sleeves. Just the sound wave dou technique alone was enough to make Luo Jin somewhat fearful. The profoundness of the dou technique was probably close to a human-ranked dou technique. Although his family also had a sound wave dou technique, he really did not have one that could suppress one's soul and destroy one's body like Xiao Yan's sound wave dou technique. Seeing Xiao Yan's figure suddenly disappear from the sky, Luo Jin's expression changed once again. What kind of movement skill was this? It actually made Xiao Yan directly disappear from this world. Suddenly, Xiao Yan's clear voice leisurely entered Luo Jin's heart. Brother Luo Jin, you delay Yun Lang here first. I will take the opportunity to sneak into his cave and find the heavenly jade essence before coming out to fight with you. Luo Jin's eyebrows twitched. Xiao Yan had actually already entered the cloud-splitting wolf's cave. However, now was not the time for him to think too much. The reason why Xiao Yan had fought with Yun Lang from the beginning was probably to save some strength for himself later on. With this thought in mind, Luo Jin's impression of Xiao Yan in his heart once again increased. They had only met for 2 days and Xiao Yan was already able to do so much for him. If he did not befriend such a brother, it was likely that he would regret it for the rest of his life. Nodding heavily in his heart, Luo Jin's gaze suddenly became determined. He was an intelligent person and an emotional person. He would only repay Xiao Yan more for his efforts. When Xiao Yan's voice gradually disappeared from Luo Jin's heart, Luo Jin had already moved and charged towards Yun Lang. Today, even if Xiao Yan was unable to find the heavenly jade essence, he would definitely endure until Xiao Yan came out. Chapter 73. Within the pitch-black cave, due to the cloud-splitting wolf's special restriction, it was as dark as ink, making it difficult to discern the direction. Even with Xiao Yan's eyesight, he felt as though there was no light in this place. With a thought, the heavenly flame in his body instantly gushed out from the surface of his body. The towering flame illuminated the area within 100 feet of the cloud-splitting wolf's cave as though it was daytime. Within the cave, there were countless tunnels that extended in all directions. Due to the lack of sunlight for a long time, the interior of the cave was somewhat damp. Droplets of water dripped down from the ceiling of the cave. The dense space caused the movement of the water droplets to be somewhat sluggish. Xiao Yan's brows slightly furrowed. He was somewhat surprised by the strength of the restriction. The cloud-splitting wolf was truly extraordinary. If he were to fight with it in the cave, he would probably be defeated in less than 100 moves. There was no time to think too much. Once he entered this place, the time given to Xiao Yan would officially start counting down. Outside, Luo Jin would definitely not be able to hold on for long. Even if he had extraordinary methods, it would be useless under the absolute strength of the cloud-splitting wolf. With a flick of his finger, dozens of thumb-sized fireballs instantly shot out. Although the fireballs were small, the strength of the heavenly flame was not to be underestimated. In an instant, the clear water beside Xiao Yan turned into shattered rocks. That cluster of fire carried a wisp of Xiao Yan's spiritual strength as it flew into the interior of the mansion. Wherever it passed, the hard rock ground would be burned until it was completely red and cracked. Its aura was frightening. After the fireballs flew out, Xiao Yan did not relax. With a move of his body, he flew towards a tunnel without any fireballs. During the flight, Xiao Yan used his spiritual strength to investigate the surrounding environment. At the same time, he smiled and said in his heart, "What's wrong? You've finally woken up after sleeping for so long." Xiao Yan's words were naturally directed at Hua Yi. After a few months, Hua Yi's injuries had finally completely recovered. Luo Jin's actions had also completely awakened him from his slumber. Xiao Yan also told Hua Yi about Luo Jin's matter while the two of them chatted. Hua Yi's heart felt a little more grateful for Luo Jin's earlier actions when he heard Xiao Yan's words. To Hua Yi, Xiao Yan was the person closest to him. It was Xiao Yan who had created him. Since Xiao Yan had a good impression of Luo Jin, he would naturally follow Xiao Yan's opinion. Xiao Yan ventured deeper into the cloud-splitting wolf's mansion while they chatted. The deeper Xiao Yan went, the more a chill rose within his heart. In merely a moment, only 2 of the dozens of fire clusters that had Xiao Yan's spiritual strength attached to them remained. The rest had long since disappeared from this mansion. In the outside world, the battle between Luo Jin and Yun Lang was like a raging fire. Of course, even though this was the case, Luo Jin was clearly at a disadvantage. Even with his strength of a 4-star bandit, he was only able to last for 4 hours when fighting with Yun Lang. However, Xiao Yan was still shuttling through Yun Lang's mansion to search. It was likely that he would need quite a lot of time. This caused Luo Jin to involuntarily feel a little worried. If this continued, he would have already died before Xiao Yan could come out. At that time, it was likely that Xiao Yan would have difficulty escaping this calamity. Luo Jin's mind was spinning rapidly. However, there was nothing he could do. Yun Lang's strength was truly not something they could contend against. "Hey! What's wrong? You can't hold on anymore? Where's your companion? Tell him to come out. If the two of you work together, you might be able to hold on for a while longer. If it's only you, I'm afraid this is the only way." Luo Jin's aura had yet to stabilize when Yun Lang, who was 1,000 feet away, emitted a mocking smile from the corner of his mouth. His tone was icy cold as he mocked. Luo Jin's somewhat pale face suddenly became cold when he heard this. He let out a heavy cold snort. He flipped his hand and a strange palm-sized astrolabe appeared in his hand. The astrolabe looked ordinary, but it was engraved with mysterious patterns. In the middle of the astrolabe, there was a pattern that looked like the Big Dipper. A faint fluorescent light flickered, making the astrolabe even more mysterious. The Douqi in his body suddenly moved. Luo Jin's body flashed and he appeared beside Yun Lang. The Douqi in his body gathered on his palm. He let out a furious cry in his heart and threw the astrolabe in his hand violently toward Yun Lang. Yun Lang's expression involuntarily changed when he saw this scene. It was unexpected that Luo Jin was actually able to unleash such a quick speed under such circumstances. The two people who had come this time around possessed extraordinary skills. If he did not treat them well, it was likely that he would fail miserably at such an easy task. Yun Lang thought in this manner in his heart. He ignored the astrolabe in Luo Jin's hand. By the time he reacted, Luo Jin had already appeared by his side. A strong and overbearing Douqi carried the astrolabe and violently smashed over. Although Yun Lang wanted to dodge, Luo Jin's attack had already arrived in front of him. He did not allow Yun Lang to do anything. His palm reflexively smashed toward the astrolabe in Luo Jin's hand. Although it was just a random attack, how could Yun Lang's strength be compared with Luo Jin's? When his palm was thrown out, the sky shook and the empty space shattered. The space where it passed turned into a vacuum. The sharp wind blew until the clothes on Luo Jin's body were tightly stuck to the surface of his body. The powerful strength caused his skin to feel a piercing pain. Luo Jin did not dare to be careless in his heart when he saw this attack. The Douqi in his body completely poured out. The might of the Douqi in his palm was extremely mighty and boundless. Bang! Suddenly, the area where the two of them stood turned into an endless empty space. The cold sunlight instantly disappeared and only an endless darkness remained in this area. The big battle between the two of them had already entered the empty space. This vast area was already unable to endure their wild and violent collision. The true collision had only just begun. Suddenly, an extremely domineering wave of Douqi swept out from the endless void. Luo Jin's thin body was set flying by this wave of Douqi. Fresh blood was spat out of his mouth as though it was free of charge. A couple of the ribs in front of his chest were also broken by this wave of Douqi. The clothes on his body were completely torn and the aura of his entire body had also become extremely weak. The full-strength explosion of an 8-star Ban Emperor was indeed not something that he could forcefully receive. Roar! Roar! A miserable wolf howl that resounded over the sky suddenly spread from the middle of the air wave. Luo Jin, whose aura was weak, was shaken by this sound until he instantly recovered. The muscles at the corner of his eyes twitched. The serious injuries within his body caused him to feel unbearable pain. However, after forcefully suppressing the waves of intense pain that were emitted from his body, a relaxed smile was lifted on Luo Jin's paper-like face. The wolf howl that reached the sky was accompanied by a monstrous fury as it reverberated over the sky. Even the solid ground shook because of this sound. Xiao Yan stopped moving within the cloud-splitting wolf's cave. He frowned as he looked at the ceiling. The cloud-splitting wolf's cave had actually swayed a little earlier. This caused Xiao Yan to involuntarily worry about Luo Jin's current situation. Old Gu, can you please take a look at Luo Jin's current situation? After all, his strength was limited. He could only ask Gu Yu for help in investigating. Gu Yu smiled upon hearing this. His tone carried an unknown meaning as he teased Xiao Yan. Little fellow Xiao Yan, do you really wish for me to help you investigate the situation of that little fellow outside? Huh? Xiao Yan lifted his eyebrows. His eyes continued to rotate. He felt a little uncertain about the meaning behind Gu Yu's words. Xiao Yan could only resolve the problem at hand after a long while of fruitless effort. A thought passed through his mind, and Gu Yu obtained Xiao Yan's answer. Haha, not bad. That little fellow's things are not bad. Although it is a little unrealistic for him to shake this cloud-splitting wolf, this is sufficient. Xiao Yan was about to continue asking after hearing this when Gu Yu changed the topic. He spoke to Xiao Yan. I advise you to hurry up. That little fellow's situation is still all right. However, if you continue to delay like this, the outcome may not be certain. Xiao Yan's expression changed, but he did not continue asking. His body moved, and he instantly disappeared from the spot. He swiftly headed into the cave. Luo Jin glanced at the cloud-splitting wolf's cave. He frowned slightly. It seemed that those two things were not easy to find. Roar! You little rascals are too bold. Don't think that you can suppress me here with this great star plate. Once I break this great star plate formation, the first person I will kill will be you. Suddenly, Yun Lang's hoarse roar, which was filled with an endless brutal murderous intent, was transmitted into Luo Jin's ears. This caused the expression of Luo Jin, who had just calmed down, to change once again. The Great Star Plate contained the Great Star 7-star formation. It was specially used to suppress the strength of one's opponent. Its strength could not be underestimated. However, the one in Luo Jin's hand was only a replica that could be used on the continent. It was clearly impossible for it to completely suppress the cloud-splitting wolf. Luo Jin exhaled a long breath of turbid air. He stood up from the ground. His body flashed and appeared outside of the Great Star Plate formation. His face revealed a determined expression. Within the Great Formation, Yun Lang involuntarily let out a cold snort when he saw Luo Jin's unfathomable appearance. He did not believe that Luo Jin, who was on the verge of serious injuries, would have any means to deal with him. However, in the next moment, Luo Jin slammed his palm on his chest. He opened his mouth and a blood arrow shot out. Luo Jin caught it with his palm. He pointed his finger and the blood in his palm slid down from his fingertip. After a few movements, a palm-sized blood seal appeared in the space in front of Luo Jin. After doing this, Luo Jin placed his palms together. His fingers continuously moved. One after another, mysterious seals were formed and merged with the blood seal. After thinking through 300 seals, Luo Jin had already formed over 300 seals. When the last seal was formed, Luo Jin flipped his palm and his palm merged with the seal. Suddenly, the world shook. Dark clouds appeared in the sky. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. Within a radius of 100 feet, wild winds rose and the birds and beasts scattered. Luo Jin's tattered robes fluttered without wind. His aura was as strong as before. It was even stronger than when he was at his peak. At this moment, Luo Jin's strength was equivalent to a 5-star half-emperor. However, this was not the end. Standing in front of the cloud wave, the seals in Luo Jin's hands changed once again. This time around, the seals were extremely powerful. Every time he formed a seal, it caused circular ripples to spread out in the air. One look and one could tell that Luo Jin's next move would be extraordinary. Chapter 74. Xiao Yan's body stood at the end of the cave within the cloud-splitting wolf's cave. The solid rock wall in front of him caused Xiao Yan to feel extremely doubtful. There was no other path to take after reaching this place. The two clusters of flames were still moving deeper into the cave. Could it be that this was a dead end? Xiao Yan sensed the movement of the two clusters of heavenly flames. After which, he looked at his current situation and felt a little depressed in his heart. Xiao Yan's eyes viciously stared at the rock wall in front of him. The expression in his eyes changed slightly as he asked Gu Yu in his heart. Old Gu, can you investigate what is behind this rock wall? Gu Yu let out an evil laugh, but he did not speak. Xiao Yan lifted his brows. He did not understand this reaction. However, Xiao Yan was an extremely intelligent person. He reacted an instant later. The corner of his mouth involuntarily twitched. He was a little speechless at Gu Yu's words. Gu Yu laughed in response. He randomly teased a little before returning to silence. This caused Xiao Yan to feel helpless. Xiao Yan bent his legs and sat on the ground. The surging spiritual strength in his mind swiftly spread and covered the entire Qinggang mountain. Xiao Yan's spiritual strength might be powerful, but Xiao Yan was unable to detect any traces of the meteoric flame mysterious iron despite being covered in such a comprehensive manner. This was contrary to Xiao Yan's wishes. Helpless, Xiao Yan's spiritual strength swiftly locked onto the two clusters of flames that were still moving. Xiao Yan quickly absorbed them into his eyes. His powerful spiritual strength was split into two. The surroundings of the two clusters of flames were reflected in Xiao Yan's eyes. Everything was the same. He could not see the end of the dark black and endless cave. He could only continue forward in order to investigate. At the same time, in the outside world, the originally abundant Dou Qi in his body swiftly withdrew like floodwater following the rapid change of the seals in Luo Jin's hands. His aura, which had just stabilized, gradually weakened at this moment. Threads of natural energy that were visible to the naked eye swiftly approached Luo Jin. When they were within an inch of Luo Jin's palm, they disappeared in a flash and turned into nourishment for the Dou skill in his hand. Luo Jin's Dou skill was clearly not ordinary. Even with his current strength that was comparable to a 5-star half-martial emperor, the supply of Dou Qi within his body was actually somewhat weak. At this moment, Luo Jin's teeth were tightly clenched. The veins on his forehead were bulging and his face was flushed red. His body was trying its best to squeeze out the little hidden Dou Qi in each of his cells. Following the continuous squeezing of the Do Qi in his body, Luo Jin could clearly feel that the muscles all over his body were emitting a kind of soreness that was difficult to endure at this moment. Waves of exhaustion and powerlessness also involuntarily rose from the bottom of his heart. Even though this was the case, Luo Jin still forcefully endured the soreness in his body. He forcefully controlled his fingers, which were already not very nimble, and carried out the final finishing step. At this moment, Luo Jin could be said to have really reached the point where he was like a lamp that had run out of oil and was at the end of his rope. However, for the sake of Xiao Yan, the thread of obsession in Luo Jin's heart allowed him to persevere in such a manner. He continued to break through his limits and reach a level that he had never reached before. To be able to allow himself to enter a truly weak state, squeeze out all the functions of his body and break through his limits at the same time, such a person could be called an ambitious and ruthless person. If Luo Jin and Xiao Yan were able to leave this place alive after this battle, Luo Jin's future achievements would definitely not be bad. To be able to break through his limits and endure the difficulties of life and death, how could such a person be mediocre? Roar! Within the large formation, the expression on Yun Lang's face immediately became intense the moment he saw the seal in Luo Jin's hand. With his eyesight, he was naturally able to tell that the Do technique that Luo Jin was about to use at this moment was definitely a man-class Do technique. Moreover, seeing Luo Jin's strenuous manner, it was likely that this Do technique was not weak even when placed among the man-class Do techniques. Yun Lang, who had transformed into a human, once again returned to his original form. The restrained Do Qi within his body suddenly erupted and collided with the restriction within his body in an attempt to break out of the formation. However, how could this Tai 17-star formation be so easy to break? Although it was not the real thing, it was likely that even with Yun Lang's strength, he would have difficulty breaking it if he did not exhaust 30 to 40% of his strength. When the Do Qi within Yun Lang's body surged and erupted, a wave of bright light suddenly erupted from the star plate that was suspended in midair. Numerous celestial thread-like cream-white energy lines shot out from the middle of the star plate and wrapped around Yun Lang within them. The celestial threads directly passed through Yun Lang's body and passed through his qi paths. Wherever they passed, the Do Qi within his body would be absorbed by the celestial threads and turned into a part of his strength. The celestial threads broke through all difficulties and reached Yun Lang's vortex. Within a couple of breaths, Yun Lang's Do Qi was completely sealed. However, Yun Lang's strength was not weak. Even with the star plate suppressing him with all its might, he was still unwilling to give up. Without his Do Qi, his strong body was still his strongest weapon. Bang! Yun Lang's sharp claws continuously slashed at the immortal threads. The threads, which were as thin as hair, were all reduced to shreds by Yun Lang's claws. However, just as hope rose in Yun Lang's heart, they rapidly recovered. Yun Lang's bombardment was like a huge fist striking cotton, and there was no return. At this moment, the seal in Luo Jin's hand finally came to a perfect end. His pale face did not have the slightest trace of blood. There was a layer of crystallized Do Qi covering his entire hand. The crystal hand contained 7 colors and looked extremely beautiful. Its crystal clear bright luster was naturally the favorite of a girl. However, under this crystal clear luster, spatial cracks that were visible to the naked eye began to appear around the crystal palm. Even the space dozens of feet around Luo Jin's body could be clearly seen ripples appearing like water ripples. Luo Jin's right palm was aimed at Yun Lang from a distance. The powerful strength caused the already shaky space around his palm to instantly collapse. The powerful aura shot toward the sky. Luo Jin's dim eyes stared at Yun Lang with great difficulty. His right palm was slowly pushed forward as a sentence was spat out from between his colorless lips and teeth. Silent destruction palm. Luo Jin spat out these 3 words in a soft manner. Suddenly, the sky shook and the wind rose. The crystal hand that was as beautiful as a work of art fell from Luo Jin's palm and flew toward Yun Lang. When this palm flew out from Luo Jin's palm, all the medium between the sky and the earth seemed to have been instantly absorbed by it. Although the wind and clouds swept over the sky, not the slightest sound of wind or thunder could be heard. Even Luo Jin's weak breathing felt as though it had disappeared. The sparkling and translucent crystal palm slowly streaked across the void, leaving behind a long rainbow trail. This scene was rather gorgeous in the sky. However, under this gorgeous appearance, who would dare to belittle this sparkling and translucent jade palm? Silence. A silence that was filled with death. Everything was instantly solidified. Even the sky, which looked down on all living things, had finally withdrawn its high and mighty attitude in front of this crystal clear hand. All that remained was respect. What was called shaking the sky and the earth? What was called exterminating all living things? The scene in front of them could be interpreted by these 2 principles. At this moment, Yun Lang, who was within the large formation, had finally calmed down. It was not that he was intimidated by the might of this silent destruction palm. However, what stood in front of him was after all a true man-class Do technique. Even with his strength, he could not be the slightest bit careless when dealing with it. He tried his best to turn his body to one side. Without any Do Chi, his cloud-splitting wolf's frightening physical body was still able to block this frightening attack. Bang! A roar that shook the sky was once again emitted from the endless empty space. Mixed within it was the miserable howl of the cloud-splitting wolf, which sounded extremely sharp. Large amounts of fresh blood came from between the countless number of immortal threads. Wave after wave of incomparably powerful airwaves swept out from the center of the explosion. Luo Jin's originally shaky body was sent flying by this attack. He was like a kite with a broken string as he fell to the ground. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. The painful howl of the cloud-splitting wolf that resounded throughout the sky finally gradually disappeared. It was trapped in the same spot as it slowly recovered. A cluster of palm-sized human-shaped flame was swiftly shuttling through the spacious cave within the cloud-splitting wolf's cave. The dark cave seemed to have no end. Even with Xiao Yan's speed, he still did not gain anything after shuttling for nearly 2 hours. While Xiao Yan was feeling impatient in his heart, a dark black stone wall once again appeared at the edge of his sight. Xiao Yan's frown, which had yet to relax, immediately deepened when he saw this. An impatient expression flashed across his eyes. His heart was about to step back and investigate the other cluster of heavenly flames. What is it? Without the old me leading the way, do you not even believe in your own eyesight? Suddenly, Gu Yu's mocking voice once again rose within Xiao Yan's heart. This caused Xiao Yan to pause as he was about to withdraw his spiritual strength. A glint flashed across Lin Dong's eyes. The expression in his eyes changed as he looked at the deepest part of the cave. The body formed by the heavenly flame gradually approached the deepest part of the cave. In a short moment, it had arrived in front of the cave. The stone wall was completely made of mountain rocks. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed to be one with the mountain. How could it hide anything else? Xiao Yan frowned slightly. However, he did not doubt Gu Yu's words. Since the latter dared to say such a thing, there was definitely a reason behind it. Lin Dong did not hesitate. Luo Jin in the outside world was already at his limit. He could not hesitate any longer. Regardless of the result, he needed to see what was behind the stone wall. The strength of a heavenly flame was naturally unparalleled. Regardless of how hard the stone wall was, it would instantly melt like ice meeting fire in front of the heavenly flame. Xiao Yan, who was formed from a heavenly flame, wildly threw a pair of large fire fists forward. Although it was not his actual body, a heavenly flame was still a heavenly flame. The natural strength could not shake it. This seemingly ordinary punch caused the entire Qinggang mountain to tremble. The mountain, which had been blasted by Yun Lang and Luo Jin one after another, was bombarded by Xiao Yan's punches one after another. The mountain rocks, which were already filled with countless number of cracks, instantly crumbled like ripe wild fruits on a tree. They followed the mountain and rolled to the ground. Following Xiao Yan's swift attacks, the thick rock wall was forcefully broken open by Xiao Yan. However, there was a solid light curtain at the end of the rock wall that blocked Xiao Yan's path. There was no need to think too much about it. Xiao Yan was able to understand the reason behind this. No wonder he was unable to find it no matter how hard he tried. Yun Lang's technique was indeed the technique that Xiao Yan had seen the most in his life. Given Xiao Yan's current strength, it was likely that he would have to put in a lot of effort in order to completely break this thin light curtain. However, the current situation did not allow Xiao Yan to make any more preparations. He needed to go all out if he wanted to leave this place alive. Both of Xiao Yan's golden bright flame eyes suddenly brightened. Both of his fists were tightly clenched. The strength of the heavenly flame all over his body gathered on his right fist. A powerful and overbearing heavenly flame aura swiftly spread. Everything in the surroundings instantly became scalding hot. After the dark rock wall emitted a crisp sound, it shattered into pieces and shot out. The atmosphere in the entire cave suddenly rose to the peak in an instant. Octane blast, explode. Bang. Following the explosive cry in Xiao Yan's heart, the large flame fist suddenly collided with the light curtain in front of him. Circular ripples swiftly spread out like water waves. The powerful force caused the entire Qinggang mountain to shake 3 times. Crack. A clear sound appeared. Xiao Yan's large flame fist was in a stalemate with the light curtain for a long time before the light curtain was finally shattered by Xiao Yan's attack. The item within was exposed to the air. Xiao Yan suddenly looked over. What entered his eyes was a piece of black mysterious metal that was at least 30 feet long. This mysterious metal was undoubtedly the flaming meteorite mysterious metal. The cloud-splitting wolf, who was resting with its eyes shut in the endless empty space in the outside world, suddenly opened them when the light curtain that was protecting this place shattered. A fury that wanted to kill the heavens shot out from deep within its eyes, causing the space in front of it to become distorted. Chapter 75. Flaming Meteorite, Mysterious Metal. Xiao immediately felt an excitement in his heart when he saw the thick, dark black mysterious metal in front of him. At this moment, the huge rock that had been hanging high in Xiao heart finally fell. Once he found the flaming meteorite mysterious metal, the heavy Xian ruler would be able to be repaired. Moreover, the only thing he missed in the other world would also be preserved. How could this not cause Xiao to be excited? The heavy Xian ruler carried too many beautiful memories of Xiao. This was something that Xiao would never forget in his life. During the days when he carried the heavy Xian ruler and trained in the Jiama Empire, he and Yao Lao had charged into the empire's borders alone. They had passed through the magical Beast Mountain range, trained in the Tager Desert, and fought in the Misty Cloud Mountain. Pan's gate of the Jianan Academy rose. One ruler broke through 10,000 kilometers. Flames swallowed the world. A mysterious tablet was erected in front of the blazing sky tower. One ruler and one person, charging into the central plains alone. The Wind Lightning Pavilion and the Hall of Souls. These were the days that Xiao had spent with the heavy Xian ruler when he was growing up. How could he forget them? Among them, the badge that Sun Er had drawn for Pan's gate. The huge ruler and green lotus on it appeared to be a scene from yesterday in Xiao eyes even until now. Forget? How could Xiao forget? On what basis should he forget? The heavy Xian ruler was personally given to him by Yao Lao. The ruler technique was also personally taught by Yao Lao. As for the D-class Do technique, 6-joint body flowing ruler, it was second brother Shaoli who took the risk of offending a tier 6 alchemist to forcefully buy it for him. Although the ending was acceptable, how could the deep brotherly affection within it be so easily forgotten? In Xiao heart, the dark heavy buster sword was no longer a weapon. It was his spiritual sustenance. If there was a chance in the future, Xiao would definitely let everyone in the Yuanwu continent witness the glory of the dark heavy buster sword. These words were not a joke. Xiao swore in the name of the Flame Emperor that he would never regret it. Xiao was startled as he stared at the flaming meteorite mysterious metal in front of him. The body that was agglomerated from the heavenly flame suddenly exploded. The powerful heavenly flame in addition to Xiao frightening D-state soul caused this space to endure for a couple of breaths before it finally shattered and revealed a mysterious space. A powerful soul power condensed into a huge palm in the air and threw the meteorite mysterious iron into it. The thing that surprised Xiao was that even with his frightening strength, he still felt a sense of heaviness when he used his spiritual strength to lift the meteorite mysterious iron. Xiao Yan did not have much time to bother about it. His spiritual strength swiftly returned to his body. His body flashed and he was already standing in front of the rock wall. His right fist was tightly clenched and the do qi within his body swiftly agglomerated. A glint flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes as a punch was thrown forward. Octane blast. Break it. A stern cry sounded and a frightening wind forcefully tore through space. The rock wall dozens of feet around him instantly collapsed. An enormous rock fell from above Xiao Yan's head. It had yet to reach within 10 feet of Xiao Yan when it suddenly exploded and turned into dust that scattered in all directions. Bang! If nothing unexpected happened, the rock wall in front of Xiao Yan was instantly shattered into a pile of dust. When it collided with the Do Qi light curtain, circular water-like ripples spread apart. However, it was not affected in the slightest. Xiao Yan emitted a cold snort in his heart. His body moved and a punch was quickly thrown out before the ripples disappeared. It violently smashed into the Do Qi light curtain. Bang! That Do Qi light curtain was extremely firm when the attack was thrown out. Circular ripples continued to spread from the point where Xiao Yan's fist and the light curtain made contact. However, nothing happened. The endurance of this light curtain caused Xiao Yan to feel surprised. However, the more this was the case, the more certain Xiao Yan was that the heavenly imperial jade essence was behind this light curtain. After all, the heavenly imperial jade essence was much more attractive to the cloud-splitting wolf compared to the flaming meteorite mysterious iron. Strength was the true Tao master of this world. Xiao Yan's actions became even sharper as he gained confidence in his heart. Fist met fist and a series of Do skills were swiftly thrown out. The ripples on the light curtain did not cease. Under Xiao Yan's all-out attack, before one wave of energy ripples could scatter, another wave had already overlapped. Under the layers of suppression, the light curtain under Xiao Yan's fist finally became increasingly transparent. The things within it were also vaguely reflected in Xiao Yan's eyes. While Xiao Yan was using all his strength to attack the Do Qi light curtain, the battle situation in the outside world, which had just stabilized, finally underwent a change once again. Roar! Little rascal, you actually dare to attempt to snatch the treasure of my cave. You are really seeking death. Suddenly, a shocking thunderous explosion spread in all directions within the endless empty space. It shook the entire Lian Yun mountain range until it trembled. The countless number of magical beasts that had already died exploded under this thunderous roar at this moment. They turned into a bloody fog that scattered in all directions, causing the entire Lian Yun mountain range to appear like an azure purgatory that was incomparably bloody. The star plate above the cloud-splitting wolf's head also exploded with a bang under this attack. The celestial silk that restrained the cloud-splitting wolf also instantly turned into specks of starlight that scattered between the sky and the earth. Luo Jin, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground and recovering, suddenly opened his eyes. His heart involuntarily tightened when he saw the cloud-splitting wolf escape from the restraints of the star plate. Had Xiao Yan's location been exposed in the end? However, Luo Jin did not think much of it. After all, Xiao Yan had already entered the cave for such a long time. If the cloud-splitting wolf had not discovered him, it could only mean that the cloud-splitting wolf was too stupid. Standing up, Luo Jin flipped his palm and a pill the size of a longan appeared in his hand. His heart ached as he glanced at the pill in his hand. The corners of Luo Jin's mouth involuntarily twitched. Evidently, this pill was not ordinary. Otherwise, Luo Jin would not have felt such heartache. Heartache was one thing, but in the current situation, he had to survive. If he died, what was the use of this pill? Luo Jin placed the pill into his mouth. The pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth, turning into an extremely gentle energy that instantly spread throughout his entire body. The few broken ribs in his chest rapidly healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The injuries in his body also gradually recovered under the medicinal effects of the pill. Although the effect of the pill was very fast, Luo Jin did not feel the slightest bit of discomfort during this process. This pill was indeed extraordinary. Roar! The cloud-splitting wolf's mouth suddenly emitted a fierce roar as he sensed the repeatedly recovering aura within Luo Jin's body. His body moved and charged toward Luo Jin. He also knew that if he was unable to finish off Luo Jin, it was likely that he would be unable to stop Xiao Yan's intentions. Ha! Octane Blast! Break for me! Within the cloud-splitting wolf's cave, in front of the dim Do Qi light screen, a wild roar suddenly erupted from Xiao Yan's mouth. The Do Qi within his body crazily surged into his fist. With an explosion, the solid light screen was finally forcefully shattered by Xiao Yan. Behind the light screen was another spacious cave. However, the difference between this cave and the previous one was that there was a thick and solid demonic flower standing in the middle of the cave. The demonic flower was sparkling and translucent, emerald green like jade. An enormous flower emitting a rich fragrance stood at the top. Its thick and solid roots were deeply embedded into the ground. Waves of pure natural energy slowly flowed up from its roots and disappeared into the demonic flower in a flash. Haha, good brat. Looks like your luck is quite good. With this thing, it is likely that you will definitely break through to a 3-star ban emperor. Moreover, if I am not mistaken, you will be able to stabilize your cultivation at the intermediate 3-star ban emperor level after absorbing its strength. How about it? This temptation should be sufficient for you, right? Suddenly, Gu Yu's unpredictable teasing words were once again emitted from Xiao Yan's heart. This caused the latter's expression to involuntarily change. 3-star ban emperor. This temptation could not be described as small. It should be known that once one's strength reached the ban emperor level, it would be extremely difficult to break through. Given Xiao Yan's current situation, it was likely that he would need at least 1 or 2 years to break through to a 3-star ban emperor without the help of an external object. At this moment, a demonic flower had solved 1 or 2 years of training for Xiao Yan. How could this not cause him to feel excited in his heart? Xiao Yan's body moved and stepped forward. A firelight flashed in his hand and a dagger formed from a heavenly flame appeared. Xiao Yan waved his hand and slashed with the dagger. Go ahead, go ahead. The old me wants to see just how you will destroy this heavenly imperial demonic flower. Before the dagger could land, Gu Yu's voice, which was filled with an inexplicable meaning, was once again transmitted. This caused Xiao Yan's hand to pause. Gu Yu's tone changed upon seeing this. He had an unfathomable appearance as he slowly opened his mouth and said, "The heavenly imperial demonic flower was originally a type of heavenly imperial flower. However, due to it growing on the heavenly imperial jade essence, it took root in the heavenly imperial jade essence and devoured the natural spiritual energy within the heavenly imperial jade essence for a long period of time. This resulted in it mutating into this form. If one wished to pluck it, one would need to use brute force to forcefully pull out the heavenly imperial demonic flower and the heavenly imperial jade essence from the soil. After which, one would need to cut off its roots. Only by doing so would one be able to perfectly refine it. Xiao Yan did not dare to slight this matter upon hearing this. His body flashed and arrived in front of the demonic flower. An explosive cry was suddenly emitted in his heart. His body immediately changed and the King Kong glass body was once again unleashed. The originally thick demonic flower appeared just like a small tree in front of this strong body. It could be shaken with just a little force. Both of Lin Dong's hands firmly grabbed the demonic flower. A huge force suddenly spread through every inch of the cave. Ha! A loud rumbling sound reverberated within the cave. The invisible wild and violent force caused the walls of the cave to crack apart. Many large spiderweb-like cracks formed on the ground around the demonic flower due to Xiao Yan's huge force. The roots of the demonic flower that were buried deep underground were vaguely visible. Bang! With a bang, Luo Jin's body flew out uncontrollably. Soon after, he viciously smashed into a towering mountain. This towering mountain also exploded with a loud bang from Luo Jin's collision. Huge rocks shot towards the horizon, before disappearing without a trace. One could imagine just how powerful the attack that Luo Jin had received was. Cough cough. Luo Jin violently coughed for a while as he climbed up from the ruins with great difficulty. Large mouthfuls of blood were spat out as if they were free. Faintly, one could see some blood-stained dregs. Clearly, those were Luo Jin's shattered internal organs. Luo Jin strenuously raised his eyes to look at Yun Lang in the sky. A sense of powerlessness rose within his heart. An 8-star half-emperor was indeed worthy of his reputation. With his strength of a 4-star half-emperor, the gap was still too great. Although he felt helpless in his heart, when Luo Jin thought of Xiao Yan still in Yun Lang's cave, a heroic feeling involuntarily rose within his body. Clenching his fists tightly, Luo Jin's body trembled slightly as he stood up. Unknowingly, Luo Jin had once again broken through his limits. Willpower was indeed something even more frightening than strength. At this moment, Luo Jin's body seemed to be filled with strength. His palms were placed together and the dou qi that had been drained from his body was completely released. Rays of dim light shot out from his palms and a surging will swiftly spread. When one looked at Xiao Yan again, the heavenly imperial demonic flower was pulled out as expected under his frightening strength. There was indeed a palm-sized emerald green rock at its roots. It was being entangled by a countless number of roots. Wave after wave of extremely pure natural energy was sent into the demonic flower's trunk through the roots. Casually picking the heavenly imperial jade essence, Xiao Yan's heart involuntarily surged. However, it was immediately forcefully suppressed by Xiao Yan. It would be a lie to say that he was not tempted by such a treasure. However, Xiao Yan was after all the Flame Emperor. At the very least, he still possessed this little bit of self-control. Xiao Yan would naturally not interfere with something that he had promised others. This was perhaps the reason why Xiao Yan was able to prepare helpers. Haha, not bad, not bad. Looking at the quality of this heavenly imperial jade essence, it seems that it has existed for quite a long time. It might not be 3,000 years old, but it should be around 2,700 years old. Xiao Yan's expression involuntarily changed upon hearing this. As long as Luo Jin could find an opportunity to refine this heavenly imperial jade essence, it would mean that he would be able to raise his strength by 5 stars. With such a treasure, it was no wonder that the external defenses were so strong. You should not think so much. 5-star strength, humph, is it possible? Gu Yu continued before Xiao Yan's expression could change. The reason this heavenly imperial demonic flower has been able to grow until now is all because of this heavenly imperial jade essence. Over half of the natural strength within it has already dissipated. Even if that brat refines it, his strength will at the very most reach the quasi 8-star Ban Emperor level. It will likely be difficult for him to advance even an inch further. Unless... Gu Yu did not say anything else after speaking until this point. He randomly dismissed Xiao Yan with a couple of sentences and ceased speaking. Xiao Yan's eyes landed on the heavenly imperial demonic flower.